Practice indoors will certainly prove challenging. Mark White, Sky News.
Well, Shaun Attwood is a former prisoner and joins us now live from Liverpool. Good morning to you. On the face of this, is it a good idea?
Well, I was incarcerated in Arizona in prisons that had smoking and prisons that banned smoking. And in both of them, the prisoners were smoking all day long because when it's banned, it gets transferred to the black market.
So you were locked up with a prisoner that actually smoked, is that right? I mean, what was that like for you? Because you don't smoke.
Well, it was awful for me because I didn't smoke. And the reason it was banned in America was because the non-smokers actually sued. And the Supreme Court ruled under the 8th Amendment it was a violation in unfair and unusual, cruel and unusual punishment.
So a good idea to protect people from the effects of second-hand smoke then?
I believe it is, and I think the Australians have got it right. There's been multiple riots in Australia with the ban cited as a factor, but what they did was, in the maximum security prison, they brought in smoking cessation programs, and after 4 months, almost 50% of the guys were still not smoking. So for decades, prisoners, who are mostly people with addiction issues, have been sold cigarettes, and that's been profited from. But they're slow to bring in these smoking cessation programs, so I think that's the key here.
But in the short term, what about this thought from prisoners saying that there will be riots? Prisoners who are locked up sometimes for 23 hours at a time will vent their anger, and this will spill over into violence if they're not allowed to smoke.
Well, what you've got is, in the general population, a minority of people smoke now, but in prison it's the majority still. So if you go cold turkey on people with addiction issues like that, there's likely to be some violence, there's likely to be riots, and that's what's happened in Australia. But in Australia, they've turned around now and started to give the guys these smoking cessation programs. If they really want to help the health of the prisoners, they've got to give them these programs, so in the long term, they won't go back to it.
Prisoners have always smuggled things in. This will just be one more thing that they smuggle in and that the prison officers will have to try and confiscate.
Absolutely, that's a major issue. If you can't stop prisoners smuggling heroin in to super maximum security prisons, how are you going to stop them from smuggling cigarettes into the lowest category prisons in the UK?
And Shaun, very quickly, do you see vaping, the use of that, as a substitute and a solution?
I see it as a halfway measure, and I also see allowing outdoor areas where prisoners can smoke, and then that protects the staff and the other prisoners who don't smoke from the second-hand smoke.
Shaun, thanks very much for sharing your views with us this morning. Thank you. Shaun Attwood there.
Thanks for having me on, Gillian.